with me, JB. Let's try this again. So welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. This is your first time here, then feel free to get into the chat. Let me know how we're doing today. Let me know what you're up to as per every show that I say. Please feel free to get into the chat. Please be respectful as you possibly can to the community, to me, and to yourselves. If you're not, then the ban hammer comes down, and we're not too fussed about banning people on here. We have so many amazing different fans on here, not only from our community, but we have fans basically from other clubs who come in here, and some of the best fans that we get, the most respectful fans in here as well. Banter is welcome, of course it is, but as long as it's respect and comes from a good place, then we're absolutely welcome banter on this community. So let me know how we're doing today. Let me know where you're from, any questions. So normally I would do an evening show. I'm coughing because I've just come back from a run, so I'm absolutely out of breath. So I've basically had a run, come back in here, coughing up my guts, but I'm absolutely fine. Dino Huge, legend of the chat, how are you doing today? Transfer news today. So there's a couple of points. I think this week has been one of those transfer sort of weeks where the whole, that's what's kind of starting to happen now, is basically again going through some of the transfer news that's coming out there. This show is going to be slightly different. Normally I do an evening show where anything goes, pretty much, but because I'm not going to do an evening show tonight because I'm away tomorrow with work, so we know evening show tonight. So this will kind of be the sort of halfway house between a kind of anything goes and not, bearing in mind it is 3:20, so I still have to be a little bit careful. So this show will replace the one tonight because I'm Scott says I'm on the school run. It's nice to know I can accompany with you to pick up the kids. Mine are in after school club, so basically means I'm free till about 5 o'clock. So this show is gonna replace that. And Scott, I admire the commitment to the cause, my friend. And I'm well, Scott, and I hope you are as well, my friend. So get into the chat. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on transfers, what we're going to talk about today, the Brighton game. Just get in there with your chats. And as I'll always say, I'm not a dictator of this chat. This is your show. This is your community. I do read out the chat. So just be careful, because I do read out your chats, as many as I can, purely out of respect. I respect your opinions. Hopefully you respect mine. And what we do is we sort of debate it. Doesn't mean that my opinion is the be all and the end all. Scott says watch along this weekend. I think so. I do think so. I need to check on a couple of things, but hopefully I will do a watch along. If not, I will definitely do a match reaction show tonight. It's half term and all that sort of stuff. So and until this channel gets big enough, and until this channel becomes my main focus, I still need to work around a couple of bits and pieces. But hopefully there will be a watch along for today. Scott says I'm unbanned tomorrow. Scott is looking forward to FC 26 because he's gone and banned himself. Scott's a legend of his chat. He really is. So what are we talking about today? So we've got a bit on Semenyo. We can start on that. I've got some stats on Semenyo as well. We can talk about him. There's all stuff that we're going to talk about. Semenyo is on the agenda again. There's a release clause in that we can talk about. Do we want him? I've got the stats again for him. Spoiler alert. When you're back, JB. So I will be back. I will be back tomorrow. So I'm only going for the day. But I'm going early. I might do a show tomorrow, to be fair. I might do, actually, because I should be back by about 7:30. Yeah, I might be back tomorrow. I just want to do a show tonight, but I'll be back tomorrow. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm coming back tomorrow as well. It's just I've got to start early. So I've got to leave by 5, be there for 9, leave at 4:30, and I should be back by about 8 o'clock. So yeah, you know what? I might do a show tomorrow because it's going to be a stressful day, and I will come back and I will do a show because it is good for me to vent the day away. So Semenyo, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Lilia Levenets, Marseille. Marseille are a they seem to be trying to go places, so respect to Marseille. So we're gonna got a little bit on Elliot Anderson, Zirkzee. Give me your opinions on all this stuff. Semenyo, Manu Kone as well. So Manu Kone is back on the agenda, and basically Amorim wants Maguire to stay. So there's lots of stuff to talk about. Getting your opinions. I want your opinions about Amorim. I want your opinions about Maguire. I want your opinions about Semenyo. I want your opinions about Manu Kone, Anderson, and Zirkzee. Marseille or Paris? I mean, to be honest with you, PSG are, obviously the big club at the moment. I mean, I don't really have any dog in the fight to be quite honest with you. I mean, if you're asking me who the better team is, I'm going to say PSG. But the thing is, PSG were doped. So I do sympathise really with the likes of Lyon, with the likes of Marseille as well. So if you're going to ask me, then I think it's obvious who the better team is. But I've as I say, I've got my rude dog in that fight. So I'll leave that to the chat. So Semenyo, no, Marseille win 1-0 Paris. I mean, just because you've got billions of pounds invested in your team doesn't mean that you're automatically going to win every single game. But I think it is look, a one-off game is a one-off game. Do I think that Marseille are better than PSG? From the outside looking in, I would say that PSG are better, but I don't know. Goodbye. Obviously not happy with that comment there, but that's absolutely fine. Scott says I'll be back about Forest JB. Mate, I understand kids come first, and I'm sure we'll be back on here. So Semenyo. Bournemouth player. Liverpool. So there's talk of a bid in the January window. Now, this has all come from, I don't know if this is coming from the Bournemouth side, the Semenyo side, CR7. Hi. Hey man, let's go, my friend. So Semenyo, Liverpool, and Newcastle apparently are looking at Semenyo. Now, I think he is a solid player, but there are a couple of things around him whereby I actually don't think that we need this player. So there's a release clause for him for 75 million pounds. Now, that's a bit rich for my blood, particularly now when I say, what position is he? So I'm going to ask you what position you think he is. And I've got a thought on this one. So for me, if you're looking at him, I think he plays on the left. I think he's a forward player. I think he's a midfield forward. And I think he's an attacking midfielder. But I think primarily, he's a forward player. You could argue that I don't think he's an out-and-out winger. I think he's a wide forward, and I would say that he's a midfield forward. He's 5'11", and a Ghanaian player, 75k a week, right? So I think first and foremost, what strikes me about this player, and ultimately I think the thought should be here, is that the way that Amorim wants to play and the way that we play, Semenyo would be a number 10. Now, you could argue, is he a wing back? I'm going to say absolutely not. I don't think he is a wing back. I think it would be a misuse of what this player is. I do think that Semenyo is ultimately a left wing forward. I think he probably suits more of a 4-3-3. But in an Amorim system, you could split the two number 10s, and he could play that split number 10 position. But in Burmo, Cunha, you could argue Bruno Fernandes, Ahmad, you could argue that as well. And of course, Mason Mount. So I think ultimately we're pretty much overstacked. Now there is a bit on Zirkzee. God, I've got this cough now because I went for a run, so it's stuck in my throat. So that's now gone. So Semenyo to me is that forward. He would play. He would play. I think his best position is that left forward position. Now I do agree that he's a solid player. I think he's a good player, and we can go through some of his stats as well, because I think it's really important to look at some of these stats. Now, whilst I don't buy into a lot of stats, I think you can use stats as an indicator as to what these players are. And the thing about stats for me is that as long as you've got you can compare and contrast, then I think it's a good indicator. Now, the eye test for me is always what I go by, because don't forget, people are stat padders. Bruno Fernandes for me is a bit of a stat pad. I'm not really going to try to bring him into this conversation today. But Semenyo, let's go through his stats, and you can tell me what you think of this player. So when we're looking at this player, oh my God, this thing in my throat is absolutely killing me. Gone. So Semenyo. Now I am of this opinion of him, and you give me your opinions on this player. To me, whenever I've seen this player, I think he's a player who gets you up the pitch. I think he is a quick, solid, gets you right up that pitch. Now, let's go through some of his stats, and this is across the Premier League. This is Premier League stats, but however, this is across all of the leagues, and to bear in mind that Semenyo plays in the Premier League. So non-penalty goals, his per 90 and his stats per that is 0.36, which puts him up into the 78th percentile, which is good. And this is of all players. Non-XG, non-penalties, 0.28, puts him up in the 68th percentile. Total of shots per game is 2.96, which puts him up into the 81st percentile, which is good. Assists, however, and bear in mind he's a forward player, assists is 0.2 per game, which is in the 50th percentile, so it's not as good. And then when you combine those two, so you combine those chances created, assists, he's on about 0.4 per game, which is in the 45th percentile. So it's not great. Now, shot created action, so the actions that he does to create shots is 3.85 per game, which is about 61st percentile. So in terms of those in terms of those non-penalty goal actions, in terms of the total shots, in terms of the assists, the assists with him surprised me that they're not particularly good, and shot creation actions are not particularly great either. Now let's go down to passes attempted. So per game he attempts 32.22 passes per game, which is in the 31st percentile, which is not particularly good. His pass completion rate is 72.2%, which is in the 24th percentile of all players, which again is not great. His progressive passes, so getting up that pitch and passing, is 3.40 per game, which is in the 43 percentile. So when we're starting to talk about these passes attempted, the passes completed, and the progressive passes up that pitch, he's not a great passer of the ball. Now, when we're talking about carries, so we're talking about progressive carries, it's 3.91 per game, which is about 63 percentile, which is starting to get up there. But you'd want him to be up there in about the 85th to 90 percentile. Successful take-ons, which is 2.01 per game, which is roughly 75 percentile. Touches in the attacking penalty box is about 5.13 per game, which is 66 percentile, and the progressive passes recorded is 7.8 a game, which is in the 48th percentile. So there's absolutely nothing there in terms of the passes attempted, in terms of the passes completed, in terms of the progressive passes, the progressive carries, take-ons, touches in the box, and progressive runs, passes recorded. There's nothing there to me that would suggest that he's this all-action player. Now, when we're looking at the players, Elise for me comes straight to mind. Now, interestingly enough, this is where Semenyo shines. Is the tackles per 90 at 1.59, which puts him up into the 70th percentile, which is for a forward player, it's pretty good. Inceptions wise, 0.28, 17th percentile, but you know he's not really there for percentiles. But when we're talking about an Amorim system, Mikhail says hello. Sorry, Michael says hi, United guy. Hello, my friend. Blocks 1.87%, which puts him up in the 99th percentile for blocks. So he's very good at blocks. Clearances 1.09, aerials 2.18, or the 97th percentile. So where he actually shined is tackles, blocking, clearances, aerials. So the thing for me, what a moment for Harry Maguire really is, and we'll come on to that as well because there's a little bit on Maguire. We did talk about that yesterday. There was a couple of bits and pieces in regards to that on Maguire's contract as well, so we can go through that. So for somebody who's a forward, a left forward, can I argue an attacking midfield player, things like progressive carries, things like taking on touches in the attacking half, Semenyo's not great. I think Semenyo's one of those players whereby he's one of those players that I think he's good on the eye. I think he's one of those players where you get player who are stat padders, and I'm not going to mention Fernandes, who's a stat padder, but he's not very good on the eye at times. And you've got Semenyo, I think he's good on the eye, but actually when you start to delve into those stats, they're not particularly good. So play back those stats. Where Semenyo actually shines is he shines for having shots. He shines for non-penalty actions. He shines for tackles. He shines for blocks, clearances, and aerials won. And the assist was even better. It was. I thought the Bruno Fernandes assist was world class. That's probably the most frustrating thing about Fernandes is he's capable of some world class things. You know, he can be capable of some petulant shit, but he's also capable of those amazing first. You know, if it wasn't for that first time pass, there was no goal. And that for me was, I thought he didn't have a particularly good game, but I think that elevated him from a 5 to a 7, because Fernandes at the end of the day, for what I think about him, no matter what, the petulance, he is in glimpses an absolute fantastic player. But I still think it's his time to go. So for me, Semenyo for me is a no. Now Semenyo has and Dino is right, he is a moments player, and the problem in moments have been few and far between. Dino is 100% right. I really agree with him. Moments FC, and he epitomizes that. He epitomizes moments at FC, and it's really funny that you said that, Dino. It's because we are right now. We are moments FC. We've been like that for a very, very long time, and is it any wonder that our captain is moments FC as well? So I think you're spot on. So Semenyo, I want your opinions on Semenyo. I don't know if you heard those stats. £75 million. You know, is Semenyo, who is a forward player, I think he's a left-sided player. I think that he would play a number 10. I think that we're overstacked as number 10. AC Milan stands now first in Serie A. It's been a long time since they've won it. Bobby says, hello, Bobby. Hope you're doing extremely well, my friend. Look, AC Milan, and a historic team. You know, very, very historic team. They are back like United. Come on. Come on, Michael. Be better than that, my friend. Just because you're top of the league right now, and just because we won game, we're not back. I respect the opinion. I respect that opinion, and because it's your opinion, I don't put your opinion down. We're not back. I don't subscribe to that. One game doesn't mean that somebody's back. We absolutely have to be consistent. You can't say one game that we're back, and you can't say that Milan, because they're top of the league right now, are back. Even if Milan won a league, are they back? No, hell no. Milan are nowhere near the team that they once were. United are nowhere near the team that we once were. Even if we win a league, we are nowhere near. Michael says, yeah, indeed, but AC Milan has improved so much this season. Tomori plays like a beast. And look, I'm not putting AC Milan down. There are new eras that happen. Football has changed completely. It'll be so good to see Milan win a league. And I'm not gonna say that it wouldn't be. It would be nice. The old guard, the sort of originators, win a league again, and it's nice. It's nice when those sorts of teams, start to become relevant again. I'm not going to lie. I'll take Tomori. He's a quality player. Fancy doing a deal. Letitia Cole says, hi. Hello, Letitia. Hope you're doing extremely well today. So it's one of those things. Palace. Hi, I'm late. I'll make the Amarin edit later. Palace, mate. There is no lateness on. There is no requirement to be here on time. Exactly. Double tap your screen. We are pushing 19,000 now. On our way to 20,000 subscribers. So, guys, we are doing well, and it's all thanks to you guys. Quality of plays AC Milan have if they win the league compared to what United would have had if they won the league. The two are such different cases. They are, and I think you make a good point. They are. I think they're very similar in terms of giants, absolute giant clubs, and they're on the demise. Who knows? It is completely different. Dina says, like, share, and subscribe, people. Congrats, JB. Look, guys, give yourself a congratulations. 19,000 is a big deal. If we get to 20,000, which I hope that we will, it's all thanks to you guys. It is unbelievable, really. So let's keep pushing. Let's start sharing, subscribing, make this community what it deserves to be. Michael says, I know it will take a very long time that Milan will be back at the level they were, but it's going to be very positive. So I hope for the best. And I really hope so, Food. I really hope so too. I think that Milan will never be the team they once were. I think football has changed. I think football has transitioned. Football has changed from what it was. United will never be that team again. Liverpool will never be that team. That doesn't exist anymore. Those years, I believe, unless something dramatic happens, I don't think those old established orders are not going to be the same again. So I think it needs to be something different, and I hope AC Milan can find that difference, but that consistency. So. Football Chief says, similar in terms of pedigree, we wouldn't have the quality to win the league and just fall off. You'd hope the owners plan for these things. You would hope so. Wish my food channel had that many subs. Dina, I'll check out your channel, mate. What's your channel called, buddy? And I will check it out. Dina, I will subscribe to your channel, my friend. Absolutely. Dino, plug your channel on here, mate. I've got no problem at all with that. I happily support you guys if you've got YouTube channels, if you've got anything that you want to promote. As long as you don't spam the channel, I'm more than happily for you guys to put in your channels, let me know and I'll happily support you guys. The team though, Shevchenko, Perlo, Maldini, just to name a few. I mean, Jesus, you had Costa Curta. I thought he was an amazing player. I mean, all sorts of people. Just trying to think back now. I mean, Costa Curta. My brain's gone. I can't even think. Was it Inzaghi or was that Inter Milan? I can't think. Ricardo, Kaká, Ronaldinho was there for a little bit. Beckham was obviously there as well. AC Milan did have a year in 2013 where they were smoking it. Everyone, Ibra, Pato, Robinho, Boateng, that team was cooking. Whatever happened to Pato? He was like the next big thing, wasn't he? I remember him when he came through. So Letitia Cole, and before we go back into Semenyo, and I want your opinions on Semenyo as well. Mark Stewart says hi, hello my friend. So I want your opinions on Semenyo as well. I'll get back into the chat. But I do want your opinions on Semenyo. 75 million is his clause in the contract to get him out, and I'll give you my opinion. So please get in your opinions in that as well. Sorry to bring this up. What will the Glazers contribute towards the so-called new 100-seater stadium? Letitia, don't ever apologise for bringing I can't think of the word. My brain's dead. A topic into the conversation. This is your channel, even if it's off topic, even if I come to it towards the end. If it's something that you want to talk about, bring it into the show. I will go through that now. What will they bring to the contribution, Letitia? Nothing. They'll bring nothing to the stadium. They bring absolutely zero. They brought zero to this club in 20 years. They've leveraged debt against this club. Dividends is what they've taken out over the last X amount of years. They've taken over £1 billion out of this club. Letitia, they will not put a single penny of their own money into this club. They take, and they've not put a penny of their own money into this football club. So there's your answer. You know, I'll give you an example, and I've spoken about this many times. You may have heard me say this. Is that what they do? What they do is basically they leverage debt. So they leverage debt to buy the club. They absolutely will never put a penny of their own money into this club. Now, this is what we were talking about, Letitia, is the UAE. What is that about? Is it about investment? Is it about have the Glazers now found their new patsy? Have they found their new deal to broker the club? You know, the Glazers will happily give away a controlling stake, right? They don't want to. If it means them giving away a controlling stake, they would want equal stake. They would give away the ultimate controlling stake, but what they would do is they would make sure that they're on an equal footing to whoever the investment is. So they're going to find out investment. Their father taught them well. Their father, and I've told this story many times, Tampa Bay Buccaneers that they own, they threatened to take the Buccaneers to another state. As you may know, to have an NFL team in your state is a massive deal. It's a huge deal. So Tampa levied a tax against the people who live in Tampa Bay to basically pay for the stadium. And that's how the Glazers raised the money, is they basically got Tampa to basically pay a tax to the residents, and they paid for the stadium, which basically the Glazers own. So, and I think that is what they thought that they could do again here, is basically get the government to fund the stadium, perhaps get council tax, an extra couple of quid in council tax for the residents to pay for this, but that didn't fly. So the Glazers are not going to put a penny in of their own cash. Who's going to bankroll this? That is the question. That is the number one question. Dean says he was amazing on FIFA. The Glazers won't put exactly, Bobby. Well, what will JB? Or what about you? I told you I fancied United to win on Sunday, mate. You were right, mate, and I'm happy. I'm happy to be corrected, Mark. I love it when you guys are right. This is what I'll say about this community. There was many of you on here that were saying, that will win. I think that will win. I was on more of the pessimistic side, just on the basis of what has happened before. We hadn't won there for 10 years, but I'm happy to be wrong, Mark. I'm happy to give you guys a big up. I'm happy to shout you guys out because it means that on this occasion I was wrong. It means that you guys were right, and I love that. I do. Palace says Elliot Anderson would be great if he's young and can do a job. Palace, I think Elliot Anderson can do more than a job. I think Elliot Anderson should be the one that we go for. When we're talking about a price tag, Elliot Anderson is roughly about £75 million. Semenyo is £75 million. It would be Anderson all day long for me. All day long. And I will come back and I'll finish the Semenyo thing as well. And Nana, Ronaldo or Messi. Really easy. Really easy for me to answer this because I get asked it all of the time. Ronaldo is the epitome of hard work. Messi is a gift. Simple as that. Messi is an absolute gift. Messi is Maradona. There were very few players who have that God-given talent to play football. The players that I've seen my whole life, probably Maradona and Messi are probably the two that are the most naturally gifted. You get many world-class players. Zidane, Figo, Ronaldinho, R9, you can Cristiano, but when we're talking about pure God-given talent, Maradona and Messi are the two for me that stand out above everybody else. Twisted Fate, 2-1, remember I called it. Twisted Fate, big out to you as well, my friend. I'll happily call you guys. I'll happily give you guys credit on here as well. Letitia said, well, that's why we need them out. Exactly. Signing I want to Stegen, Guehi, Anderson, Tony. Obviously not all in January, but that would massively strengthen us. Yeah, I think of all those, I think that ter Stegen and Tony could be the two. I think that Gallagher could be the one as well. Looking at those stats yesterday, I think Connor would be a good loan signing. I do. I think he'd be a really good signing. I think Tony would be okay as well as a backup, and I think ter Stegen would be good as well. I think ter Stegen would give Lemens that competition that he needs. I don't necessarily think that ter Stegen would start, but as a mentor, I think he'd be great. Football Tube says they just need to sell and get gone. I've had it up to the nose with this club. Nothing ever seems to go right. That's an interesting opinion. Only on the basis, and I don't mind that. Again, it's your opinion, and I like that opinion because it's a different opinion, right? Everybody this week is buoyed, right? Everybody this week is buoyed by the fact that we won one game. I like to temper it with it's just one game. We need to go to Brighton and we need to win, right? And I agree with you. This is more than just the game. This is all about the club. This is why the Glazers need to sell, because we're buoyed as a club, but then we've brought back down to earth because you're right. Whilst the Glazers are still here, we absolutely need to sell this club. We can do well on the pitch. We can win a couple of games, but whilst these Glazers, whilst these leeches are still here, we're never going to progress. We can only progress to a point because there's no real investment in this club. And you're right. Nothing ever seems to go right for a long time because you've got owners of this club who don't care. Dino says, something is defo simmering, it's all gone hush hush. Sure, something will come out when it's official. And Dino, you could be right. I believe something will come out. Something will come out soon. I think it's investment. I don't think, as I said before, this is what I think, and hopefully, again, I'm wrong, just like Liverpool. I hope I'm absolutely wrong. Give me a second. Hopefully, I'm absolutely wrong on this one. Fingers crossed, I'm completely wrong on this one. But I think what we could be seeing here is a dilution of shares. I think it could be the UAE coming in and offering investment, a lot of investment, but they're going to want at least, not necessarily controlling stake, but they're going to want at least 30%, 20%. I think that what we're going to see, it could be, as I said before, and I hope I'm wrong in this, I think we could see a triple threat of Glazers and UAE, or some sort of investment group, and Ineos all working together. The UAE consulting group will, as we said before, come in, buy the debt, and people think, well, why would you want to buy the debt? Like, who would want to buy the debt? And come invest in and basically bankroll them. So why they would buy the debt? And this is, people assume that debt is bad. Debt is bad, right? But you don't pay any tax on debt, right? And we've got to understand as well is actually debt can help you with taxes. If you take on debt into your company and your books and you make a loss, you can carry that loss over for 3 years. So debt is not always bad. Now, to pay a premium for this club, the UAE could happily in cash pay off that debt. Now, they would then be carrying that debt, right? They build the stadium, 2 million, let's just say. Maybe they invest as well in the infrastructure around the club. There's 17,000 new homes going to be built. And you think 17,000 times 400,000, you do the math, that's billions of pounds. Concerts, NFL games, it's going to be like a pantomime. That 1.2 billion of debt, they'll make that back sixfold. So it's worth them paying that debt to take the shackles off of this club, so in the meantime they can buy players and try to be successful on the pitch. They will make that money back. They will make that money back and some. The stadium, again, they could lease it back to, they could lease it out. The Glazers pay a popcorn rent. So I don't know if you've seen this stuff with Prince Andrew, and I'm not talking about the bad stuff. I'm just talking about the fact that when he's got this royal home, right, and he pays peppercorn rent, and basically what that means is he's supposed to pay a fair price for rent. He doesn't pay it, so they could lease the stadium back to the Glazers, who pay rent. They never pay it, so they're going to make billions. They're going to make billions of pounds. And this is why they would. So I think there's a strong possibility here that this could be investment. And what we could hear, I believe, is one or two things. We're going to hear there's a team up, a mashup between the Glazers, UAE consortium, and Ineos, or they basically just leave. Where are we? Opus for the Health says the papers seem to think United are after Anderson, so hopefully by the summer it might happen. I keep hearing rumours of Saudi firm wanting to buy United again. I don't know about you, mate, but I've almost lost interest in signings. Owner change talk. I appreciate you coming through to make United content. Condemnable patience, commendable patience. Cheers, buddy. A week ago, I said United paid 60 million for Zirkzee, and you guys were like, 42 million. When it can rise to 60 in total, I was the one that was right. Yeah, but it's not going to be 60 million. It's going to be nowhere 60 million. Yeah, it's just not right. I can't wait for Sunday, hoping we can kick on from the Anfield win. So do I. We didn't win there in 10 years, but we also didn't lose there in 2 years. Now, 3 years, Rúben Amorim, as bad as he is, has been the onus. Anfield, I'm working on Amorim edit now. That's awesome. So, look, I bring you the content, I bring you the transfer news, which I think is important. But I think ultimately, what the two things here are, right? Let's just be honest on this, right? And I will come back to the Semenyo thing as well, and I will go through the rest of the crap as well, right? Is that there are two things I think this fan base at the moment is focused on. Is number one, each game. So the next game, the Brighton game, the Forest game, and the sale. I think these two are the key points that we are interested in. And is there any coincidence right now that there's a lot of transfer talk? Again, whenever people are talking about the Glazers, Ineos, there is always transfer speculation. There's always spin. I've just got to report this news, right? But I think Football Tube's right. I think there is always this spinning around. And I think whilst I do think this is leaning towards investment on the basis that we're talking about players, right? We're talking about £75 million for Anderson. We're talking about £75 million for Belieber. We're talking about Semenyo, right? I might be mistaken. I might be a little bit thick, right? But I'm sure that we made a loss. I'm sure we made £36 million loss. And where the hell are we going to get this money from? I've heard one of the bigger channels today, not the biggest one, but one of the smaller ones, but bigger than mine, basically trying to say that Ineos have got this master plan. They've got this fucking master stroke. How they've saved 60 million, and that basically equates to them being able to spend 252 million pounds on players. Total and utter bollocks. I get you can that 60 million is like, you can put 20 million down for 3 players, for 3 £60 million players, right? You could put that down and pay it off over X amount of time. We've got 400 million of transfer debt outstanding. We made a £36 million loss from revenue of £668 million. It's total crap. It is just total and utter crap. Like how are we going to sign, Anderson? I love Anderson. And I think he'd be a fantastic player. But how are we going to make this work as well? So I think there's so much spin. There's so much spin on profit. There's so much spin. If what's going to happen and what you're going to see now is you're going to see we'll be talking about Anderson. We'll be talking about Belieber. We'll get none of them. Before in the summer window, it was, if we don't get any now, and this was Ornstein, and people slept on Ornstein, by the way, when he basically said, I'm gonna find the clip because I could see it at the time. Before we signed Shesko, Ornstein basically said in a podcast that Ineos are happy with the business that we've done. They're really, really happy. But whatever we don't do, we'll do it in the January window, right? Every single season. And now we're coming up to the January window, and now once again, there is no value. There's no value in this market. We're planning for Belieber in the summer. We're planning for Anderson in the summer, but in the January window, it was we'll go back for Belieber in the next window. We'll go for this player and that player. total bollocks and total spin. On pure God-given talent, there's a lot of people Ronaldo can't stand with. Let's call a spade a spade. R9, Rivaldo, Adriano, Robin are all better than CR7. Interesting viewpoint on that. I think R9 definitely. I think R9 pure God-given talent better. I'm not going to argue that. I can't. I'm going to argue it because that's your opinion and there's nothing to argue. I would agree on R9. Rivaldo, I would on talent, yes. Adriano, no way. I'm sorry, Adriano, no. No. I can't agree on that one. I just can't. Adriano, not for me. R9, yes. Rivaldo, yes. I think Robin was a different sort of player, but I like Robin. I think Robin is a good shout. Do I think he's better than Cristiano? I don't know. I think you raise a good point. I think Robin is a natural winger. I don't think Cristiano is a natural winger. I think Cristiano's done a lot with what he's got, but I think I get what you're saying when you're talking about talent and you're talking about people that wouldn't necessarily have to. They work hard, but they wouldn't necessarily they're gonna have that gift without working hard. I can see it. I can see it. I can't see ter Stegen wanting to be backup keeper. Surely he'll leave for first team football. The thing about ter Stegen though is that he's been injured for a long time. I think when you can't get in front of what's his chops, my brain's dead. You can't get in front of what's his bloody name. It will come to me. When you can't get in front of the Barcelona keeper now, I mean, yeah, forget about it. You know how you said Daishi ain't popular. My short got 1.2. Nice, mate. Good. I mean, it's probably your edit, mate. I'm going to say it's probably your edit. Probably give yourself credit on that one. I think you've probably picked the right topic in terms of Daishi going straight in now. But I think that I think it's probably your edit rather than Daishi, but you never know. What happened when football was about the fans and wasn't bought by corporations? That's where football gone. The debt at United is an asset. At least that's how the Glazers see it. The debt is an asset to them because it means they ain't got to pay it. That long-term liability on the books is certainly not an asset. But in terms of them, it is an asset because they're not paying it. They've bought something in someone else's money. It's long-term debt. Long-term debt sits on the balance sheet. It's a credit on your balance sheet, which basically means that it's not a good thing. But to them, you could argue, is it an asset? They're not going to pay it. At the end of the day, it is a liability to them on the basis that if somebody's not willing to pay for the club and they needed to sell, it would come out of the profit that they would ultimately make. But right now, they're not prepared to budge on it. So in terms of an asset, you could argue that it's an asset because they've never paid for the club. Like 99% of businesses are run off of debt. People that don't know business don't know this. However, they are slightly overdoing the debt and shouldn't be this bad. I would argue on that one, it depends on the business. You can survive on debt. You can be in debt. You can be in huge amounts of debt as long as you're company worth is more than your debt. Ultimately, you're going to have to pay your debt back. But whilst I semi agree with that, a lot of companies do operate on that because because you can carry debt forward. Sometimes when you're talking about debt, once the revenue, out of your profit, out of your net, once you've paid your employees, once you've paid off all of your stuff, if you're in a little bit of debt, then that's fine. But yeah, I mean, most companies who are in debt, in huge amounts of debt though, do tend to go under. But debt, as you say, Twisted Fate, debt is not always bad. It's not always bad. Sonny Singh says, bro, damn. Dino Hughes says, crazy amounts of money. Who would have guessed 20, 30 years ago that this kind of debt would be around any football club? Exactly. This debt kills this club in terms of our PSR. It's awful. The debt that we were in and the money thrown into football runs in parallel. Hello, United fan. You know how you said that, Dosh. Yeah. I want to be better than English writing because my school, Turkey, we are doing an exam for speaking, listening, and writing exam. Besiktas. You're doing well, my friend. Sounds like you're doing extremely well to me. Cheap Play says, hi, JB. Hello. A lot of Serie A teams like Zirkzee, if we can get our money back or good CM in swap, let's do it. Bring Zirkzee to AC Milan. Apologise if my writing is bad. I'm not English. Besiktas, you're doing extremely well, my friend. I can perfectly understand your grammar and English is pretty good, my friend. Please sell to Besiktas Football Club, Besiktas CFR. Toure and Abraham. Abraham is playing, not Maguire, in CF. Joshua Zirkzee come to Besiktas with Osimhen. Save 60 million, spend 250. Hell no. To rubbish. Exactly. There are some channels out there who are spreading a lot of stuff. It scares me. It really, really does. Ter Stegen hasn't been injured that long. He played 36 games last season and 9 of this season. Okay, I thought he was out for longer than that. But again, I don't watch him that much. So I just thought he was injured. I thought he was off for quite a long time. But maybe he's just been dropped. The market is inflated as an economic crisis in the UK. I watched Adriano live. He was class. I'm not disputing. I'm not disputing. Adriano at one point was a beast, absolute beast. All the best players can adapt and reinvent themselves. Scholes, for instance, Juan Garcia was starting in goal for Barca. I thought it was not fucking Fabianski. What's his name? The old Arsenal goalkeeper. I can see his face. Just imagine Semenyo coming to, CR7. So Semenyo, I have been through his stats. I'm not going to go through his stats again. I'll always prefix stats with the eye test doesn't lie. What happens on the pitch doesn't lie. But £75 million. Now Semenyo would basically play in a number 10 role. Is he better than Cunha? No. In Burmo, is he better than him? No. Seasonable seaside scenes, brilliant. I think your viewpoints are weak and childlike, leaving cringe feelings goodbye. The fact that you spelt think with an F tells me everything that I need to know. I think your viewpoints are weak and childlike. There should be weak and leaving cringe feelings goodbye. Interesting. The fact that you spelt think with an F, and you said weak and child, so weak and child. So I think when you're calling my opinions out, and you can't spell think, and your grammar is shit, I find that really, really funny. If United have bought Shesko for 75 million, why not Semenyo? And he's a Premier League proven. Because Semenyo will play as a number 10, £75 million. So would you rather buy Semenyo for £75 million, a player that we don't need, or Anderson for the same price, whose all-round stats are better than Semenyo's? I know they're different positions, but what I want to ask is, do we need another number 10? Because that is where he'd play. He wouldn't be a wing back, he would be a number 10. So is he as good as Cunha? I don't think he is. I think that I know, and if you're looking at his stats, I don't think he is. I think £75 million for him would be a waste of money. I don't think we need him. I think we need Elliot, Anderson more, Belieber more. Well, again, I will always say I think stats. I think stats are stats. But I think that the eye test is better, but Semenyo for me is a no. So I think we're going to be linked, and I don't think ultimately that we go for Semenyo. But again, that's my opinion. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but I think you play in 10, and I think we're overstacked with 10s unless we're basically going to sell Mason Mount. I don't think. Twisted Fate says, I don't see Semenyo coming to United. We have Cunha in Burma. Zirkzee can play there. Ahmed can play there. We need midfielders before number 10s. I think you're spot on. Scott says, I'm back. I feel you bring your life too much into this podcast. For example, why would you cut out some cucumbers after feeling them in that? What? I feel you bring your life too much into this podcast. For example, why would you cut cucumbers after feeling them in Aldi for hours? I have no idea what you're saying. Look, without being rude, right? I couldn't care. This is a community. What we do is we talk about different stuff. This is a different kind of show. If you don't like it, piss off. Simple as that. CS7 said, I would be a good signing. Seasonable, you said you was going. Go, nobody is keeping you. You smiled. I'll smile because it's ludicrous. It is. Anyway, as I say, I'll give you a chance. I do like to give people a chance. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes down. I don't mind the banter. Anyway, I'm getting message. It tickled you. It did tickle me. It did. I'm not gonna lie. I like banter. I do like banter. But if you are gonna banter me, at least spell think right. Exactly. This is what we do here. And this is why this takes so bloody long. It's because I read your comments. It does make me laugh, and I do like the banter. Frugal Boy says, good day. Uno one I'm going to join to be more productive. Good. Be more productive. Get in your opinions. Anderson all day. So Semenyo for me is a no. I don't think we need him. I think he'd be better at Spurs. Let Liverpool have him. It's all good. It's all good stuff. Now, Manu Kone is the next. I think for me is the next topic of conversation. Somebody that I believe that we were in for in the summer. There's talk of us being back in for him again. Rambo, I love that name still, says we no need a midfielder like Anderson or Wharton or Belieber, so no need to stress about thinking about forward plays. I agree with you. Look, just got to report what's out there. I think it's a load of nonsense. I think we need two. I think we need Anderson and a Belieber, Anderson and a Wharton, Anderson and a Kone potentially. So Manu Kone plays for Roma, and he is, I think he's 24 years old. He is a midfield, so a midfielder, centre midfielder, defensive midfielder. I will go through some of his stats as well. Spoiler alert, his stats are nowhere near Anderson's, nowhere near Belieber's, nowhere near Anderson's. He's a midfielder, defensive midfielder, but I think he does lack on the defensive midfielder point. So his report, and let's go through. Look, I'm not going to necessarily go through the attacking aspect of him because he's not great. He's not necessarily an attacking player. He's not an assister, total shots. Anything in that forward line, that forward box, the penalty box, he's not great. Knowing the way we have gone lately, we'll probably keep on buying Prem Proven. Hello, my friend, who is a United fan. Danzy Adam, welcome, my friend. So when we're looking at Kone, who's a midfielder, a defensive midfielder, we should be looking, at, because Amorim does like somebody who's a progressive carrier of the ball, takes on people, good passer of the ball as well, good tackler, interception, blocks, and aerials won. Actually says, hello, how are you? I'm doing extremely well, my friend, and I hope you are too. So, Kone, we need to bear this in mind, that he is a midfielder, defensive midfielder. So his passes attempted are 45.64 per game, puts him in the 41 percentile, which is not great. Pass completion rate is 91.2% per game, which puts him in the 96th percentile, and this is of all leagues, by the way, as well. So puts him up in the 96th percentile. So he attempts passes the less than 50%, but of those 50%, 91.2% are completed. Progressive runs per 90, 5.6, which puts him in the 60th percentile. So not great, but not bad. Progressive carries of the ball, 2.16 per game, which puts him up in the 86th percentile. Successful take-ons, 1.25 a game, 92 percentile. Touches in the attacking box, which you probably wouldn't expect him to have, 1.28. Progressive passes recorded, 1.69, so 54 percentile, 47 percentile. Not great. Tackles, and this is where I would expect this is where I would expect him to shine. Tackles per game, 1.4, 14th percentile, which is awful. Interceptions, 0.88, which is in the 42nd percentile. Blocks, 1.01, 36th percentile. Clearances, 0.91, 14th percentile. And aerials, 0.93 in the 58th percentile. It's not great. It's not great, really. Now, and the reason why I go through these scouting reports, and I think it's important to go through these, is because we got to understand that this is what United do. This is what United do. This is what we do. We use data analysis to look at players. We don't necessarily need to. We look at what I'm looking at, but when we're even looking at Kone compared to a Steeler, a Steeler really brings in things like assists, brings in assists and goals, passes attempted, progressive carries. Steeler's not the best tackler of players, but he's in the 97th percentile. He's up there with some of the best for assists, for creating shots, for passes attempted, for passes completion, progressive carries. He is. You give him that ball, he's not necessarily the best at tackling. Belieber and Anderson are the absolute best at that. So Kone, for me, I can see why United have maybe not gone for him. But give me your opinions on him. It depends on the price. For me, I don't necessarily think that he would be the one for me. Would you? I don't know. I don't know how much he would be. Would he, if being at 50 million mark? Would you rather go spend another 25 mil to get Anderson or Belieber? Who is going to be one of those better players? And Rambo says, I want a Premier League proven player. So I think that with, sorry guys, I think that with, Jesus Christ. I'll come back to that. Yeah, so I do think if we are looking at defensive midfielders, as much as we would be trying to find that bargain, I do think that we would ultimately need to go and get a Premier League proven defensive midfielder like a Belieber or like an Anderson. I think Anderson would be the jewel. I think Anderson would be perfect. And then alongside him, you could put a Kone. You could put a Stile, because I think Anderson would do all of that defensive work as well. Let me go through your chats. Bayern Prem proven is the way to go for us right now. Wharton, Belieber, Anderson are the only three I want. Nobody outside the Prem. I agree with you. I think ultimately we need two of them. For me, I think that I'm not saying that there's a misconception about Wharton. I think that Wharton is very, very niche. I think he's good at a couple of things. I think Anderson and Belieber are better. I think Belieber for his tackling and tenacity, and then Anderson for his all-round game. I think I would go for those two. Ramble Water says, I'm guessing Kone would be the cheaper option. No, I don't know how much he'd be. I think Kone would be like Ugarte. I think he would be very much like that. I think he would be very inconsistent. I think that he's not. I don't see why we would rather go and get another Ugarte for 50 million to go and spend 75 million pounds and go and get the best you can. Mount always worries me, his injury record. I just hope he gets a run of games. He will, but he's going to get injured again. I touch wood. I really, really hope he doesn't, but I think he might. I hope that next season United will be eligible to participate in the European Cups and that my team will play against Trabzonspor. I hope so, my friend. Rambo says, did we get through the shot games without any injuries? Does anyone know? I think we're okay. I think we are okay. Martinez is still not back yet. He's still not back. So I think we are unscathed. I think so. Even better, I got my very good feeling back about the Brighton game. Rambo, for the first time in a long time, I am also optimistic. I think we'll win it. I think we'll win it 3-1, 2-1. I think we'll win that game. Amrin edit is out. I tagged you in it. Thank you, my friend. I want Prem proven. Same time, we have some gems in the academy. Yes, we do. I'm hoping that we'll have more games next season. If we can be in European competition next season and be in the Premier, well, we will be the Premier League campaign, the Carabao Cup campaign, FA Cup campaign. There will be more than enough games. We need another midfielder to give Bruno a break, Pete. I think Wharton likes Liverpool. I'm hoping more than I'm wrong. I would be okay with Wharton going. I like him, but I prefer Belieber and Anderson more. That's my own opinion. How do people feel about Amorim restricting himself to one formation? I think it's crazy, as all the best managers adapt. I think Opus. I think he is adapting. I do think he is, but I think you need to bear in mind, and this is my opinion. He's adapting to a team that's not his, mate. I think these players. You're asking Amorim. Amorim was asked to come to this club. He chose to come. We asked him to play a system we've never played. These players have never played the system before whatsoever. We've bought him 3 front plays, but what about the rest of them? So I think he's adapting, but he's adapting with the best that he's got. Come Saturday, we could be above Liverpool. How much fun does that sound? Opus, if I notice that he does change formation, game the ball and without. Last thing I wanted to talk about really was Maguire. So Harry Maguire, as we spoke about yesterday, Fabrizio Romano, Chris Wheeler. There were two contrasts there, basically, whereby one is saying that the contract is on the table. This is a brand new contract, so we'd have to severely drop his wages from 192 grand a week. And Chris Wheeler is saying that there is no new contract. There basically isn't one on the table just yet. But Harry Maguire would like to stay. Now, there's a thing here whereby Harry Maguire is probably going to want a 2-year contract, a 3-year contract. I think Harry's going to want a 3-year contract. I wouldn't offer him that. I wouldn't offer him a 3-year deal. As much as I think he can do another year, I think another 3 years is taking the P. If that's what Harry wants, I would say you need to go elsewhere. As much as I like him, and as much as I think he's done very, very well, I don't think we should be held to ransom. I don't think Harry Maguire here is holding the cards. I would give him a rolling 1-year deal. I think that should have been the rhetoric. That should be the standard. When you get to a certain age, you basically go on a 1 year, like Giggsy did, like Scholes did. So I think if Harry Maguire wants a 3-year deal, see you later. I like him. I do like him. I think he can add stuff. I think that Amorim wants him to stay. I get it. But if Everton or Palace or Burnley or like whoever it is, offer him a 3-year deal, 120 grand a week, or like 100 grand, piss off there. I can't. I think a rolling 1-year deal. He's had 6 years of this, and I think, as Kirk says there, I think that let Euro develop, let somebody else come through. I think one of Amorim's mistakes so far is he's stifling the youth. I do think he is. I think he's stifling this youth. He doesn't, Luke Shaw, and again, I'm not going to bash him too much. I don't want him in this team. Luke Shaw being there is stifling people as well. Euro is class. I think Euro's brilliant. I'd play him every game. I think he's brilliant. So Maguire, for me, I think that Maguire, give him a year's contract. I'm happy to give him a rolling year's contract. Opus says, Scott says, knowing us, we'll give him a 3-year deal, which I think would be absolutely stupid. Crystal Palace play the same formation and they're doing well. Robert Walter says, Opus, Palace have players ready and they have played that formation for a solid 12 months. I'm just going to look at something for a second. Let me just look at something for a second because... Okay. No. So, let's have a little look. So, the interesting thing about it is that, as you say there, Crystal Palace and United play the same system, right? So, Palace are currently sitting in 9th on 13 points. We're sitting on 13 points as well. They've won 3, we've won 4. We've lost 3, they've lost 1. They've drawn 4, we've drawn 1. They've scored 12, we've scored 11. They've conceded 8, we've conceded 12. So we're on -1 and they're on +4. So, and we've won our last 2, they've lost and they've drawn. So I think there's an interesting debate to be had here. that whilst I say that, and whilst I do take the point that Palace play a very similar formation, what is clear is that at the moment there's not a lot of difference between the two. To bear in mind that Glasner has had them for a bit longer. They've got their players in. They've got their players. They're well versed in that system. They've been playing it for quite some time. We still don't have the players to play the system. We are getting better. We are on the same points. And you could argue that we're a bigger club. You know, I think Crystal Palace are more settled than us. Yet we're still same points. They've scored a couple of goals more than us. All I'm saying is Glasner, what's Glasner gonna do differently to Amorim? We're on the same points. I'm just chucking it out there. That it's a really interesting topic of conversation. So if, for example, United win, it puts us on 16 points. And if Palace draw again, Palace lose, Sunderland win or draw, win, lose or draw, Chelsea, we're right back up there again. I see this Glasner point, and I see this, they play this, this back three as well, and Glasner adapts, and he's this great coach, and Amorim is not great. We've won more games, okay, we've lost more games, we've won more games, and we're on the same points. I just think that's an interesting debate to have. Give Maguire a 2-year contract and a maximum of 100 to 150k a week. 150k a week, not a chance. Not a chance in hell will I give him 150k a week. Not a chance. Not an absolute chance in that. I think Shesko's on 145. In Burmo, Cunha, I think are on 180 odd. Not a chance for me. As Ruben said, at the end of the last season, the good times will be back, I believe, but it takes time, and Ruben needs a couple of windows. Rambo, you're preaching to the converted. Preaching to the converted, my friend. I believe that he needs another couple of windows as well. What do you make of German Angelo Stiller? Is he a better option in the long term? I like Stiller. I like him a lot. I don't think he's not a defensive midfielder in terms of, it depends on what Amorim wants. If you want more of a sort of defensive midfielder, Steele's not really defensive, but I think he's got a fantastic engine. He's a good carrier of the ball. He's progressive part. He's passing, and his creation for goals and assists is up there with some of the best in European football. If you look at those percentages and you look at the passing, progressive carries, he's brilliant. The only thing that lets him down is the defensive side, but I think that can be learned. And I think if you get an Anderson, so I think what I would do is I'd go for an Anderson and a Baleba, an Anderson and an Anderson, maybe you could argue with Kone, but I would go, I would like an Anderson and a Steeler. I think those two would do really, really well together. I do. Wharton, for me, there's something about him that, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not suggesting that at all. I just prefer Anderson. I prefer Baleba. I prefer Steeler. So for me, I would go Steeler and I'd go Anderson. And even if you just got Steeler and you've got a cheaper option as a defensive midfielder, I'd be happy with that. Wharton, for me, there's something about him. Recent United managers have struggled against sides with a bird-based name. I've seen that LVG had Swansea to deal with, Ten Hag and Brighton, Brentford, Ollie lost 4-1 to Watford. Will Amorim follow suit? In Glasner ball, the CMs sit at the base of the midfield and hold their shape on Amorim's system. Wharton and Lerma complement each other well too. Look, our pivot is awful. That is the one thing that I will say is our pivot is absolutely dreadful. It is criminal. It's criminal, that pivot. Now, as Liverpool showed, they passed right through that midfield. I don't disagree that Glasner ball is very, very good. But people are waxing lyrical about this amazing system and how he adapts and like how he's brilliant and I'm not disputing that. But we've apparently had this really, really, really terrible bad season. Glasner's having this amazing season, and yet we're on the same points. We've won more games. Okay, we've lost more. They've drawn more. All I'm saying is that comparatively, we're having very, very similar seasons, except the rhetoric is Palace are doing this amazingly well, and they're this fantastic team, which they are. And United are terrible, awful. They're going to go down, but yet we've got the same points. It's just interesting to me, the media and the perception of other managers and clubs, when actually Amorim is not doing too badly. I'd have a far bigger budget than Palace, yes, with better facilities. Not going to disagree. Whilst United's performance versus us was gutsy, but it's also one where you weren't always in control. I agree with you. I agree. I don't. Look, I'm not one of these fans who are, we're back. Nonsense. No. We are not back. I think it was a bit more than gutsy. I do. I think Liverpool were quite surprised at times. We could have been 2-3 up. I thought you could have scored a couple of goals as well. I thought second half was gutsy. I thought first half and maybe the beginning of the second half, I generally thought that we were probably the better team. But then after that, as you say, I do think that we were gutsy. Mags is already on 200k. Yeah, he's on about 192,000. Would you get rid of Mount, Dalot, Casemiro, and Shaw in the January window, or wait till the summer? I'd wait till the summer because I think that whilst I would get rid of them in the summer, I think now we've got a settled squad as much as we can. I'd prefer to add to it. As much as I don't look, I like Mount, but I would sell him. Dalot, Casemiro, Shaw, I think I would wait until the summer and then get rid of those players. Otherwise, we'll become unbalanced. I would wait. Exactly, can't replace him. He's taken a pay cut to sign a new contract. It should be around 135 plus bonuses. Rambo, mate. Respect the opinion, mate, but you're well off. Maguire should be nowhere near 135 per week. 100% not. Mate, for me, it should be on 100k. I would never give him 135. No. No. What? No. I look, I'm not, if that's how you feel, but for me, Maguire is now a 100k player. I think that people are complicating football too much. You just need a play to run and kick a ball. That's it. I think it is that simple. You need players to do their jobs: tackle, run, kick, shoot. Simple as. If you can get Amadou, Onana, them and then him and Manu would look good together. I worry about Manu. a lot. I think he's one for the future, but will Manu get that chance? I don't know. Wharton is good, but he doesn't seem to dominate games in the centre, and I think that's right. I do think it's right. He's a progressive ball carrier, a passer. He's not a destroyer, and I think that's what we need. I think we need a destroyer. I also think we need an all-rounder as well. I like Wharton. I think he's a fantastic player, but something about him that I'm not the biggest fan. I'm worried about Kone. He could generally end up leaving if he doesn't continue to get into the Prem team. I agree with you. Glasner doesn't dominate games. He's the flavour of the year, having beaten the biggest club in Britain in the Community Shield. I agree. Glory, Man United. High Champions League tonight. Oh, wait. United on in. Oh, not Brett May. Don't bloody start. Fifth defeat in a row incoming. The 24-hour news cycle has forced outlets to fabricate and sensationalize stuff in order to keep getting eyeballs and stay relevant. Portraying United as a villain helps them stay relevant. But exactly that, mate. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Mate, you've summed it up. There's so much in this club, from the debt, right? They can talk about the Glazers, they can talk about the debt, they can talk about the stadium, they can talk about leaks from the dressing room, they can talk about Fernandez, they can talk about Shesko, they can talk about so much stuff, mate. You can recycle the same shit every single day. I could recycle the same stuff, right? On here, I'm led by you guys, so sometimes we do repeat stuff, but the repetition doesn't come from me. What we do on here is we talk about the stuff that's important to you rather than leading with that sort of stuff. And this is why sometimes I'll do one show a day, because there simply isn't. I don't understand channels that can do 3 shows a day, because there isn't that much out there. He's already on 200k a week, just making sure. I haven't seen anything so far to suggest that Semenyo would stay beyond the end of the season. Less than 3% of the total minutes have been played by academy grads so far. There is something out there to say that the grads are on. I think I will read that first. My hot take at the start of the season was that one of Eddie Howe or Emery would get sacked by May. Interesting. At the moment, I don't think Eddie Howe will get sacked. I think Emery might. Majibin says, I am. Hello, my friend. When it comes to the grads, I think we are so eager for them to come through. I'm puzzled right now by the academy, because I don't actually know, and I've watched them play multiple times. I don't know if they're not coming through because they're not good enough, or are they not coming through because they're not being given an opportunity. I think there's a question mark right now around the academy. I don't know. Are they good enough or not? And the other thing to say is we don't have a platform to give them. The reason possibly why they're not as good is because you only really learn when you play Premier League games, and we're not giving them that chance. So I think it's a good point. I think the academy question and the conundrum of the academy right now is a very, very good point. My hot take is that Slot doesn't get in the top 6 and he will be sacked. I can see Emery going to Anfield in a couple of weeks and winning. Interesting points, guys. Yeah, I mean, the slaphead bin dipper. I mean, look, I think all this stuff about Slot already, I mean, Jesus Christ, he's only lost 4 games. I mean, I know there's standards, but and I'm not supporting Liverpool by any means, but what I did see was funny is I can't remember the person's name, but she was a female, she was a girl, and she was basically like screaming into the camera saying that Slot is this and Slot is that, and he's gonna be he should be sacked, and screaming down the camera like a lot of creators do for clicks, is that they sit there and they scream down the camera, and they Liverpool are apparently Klopp is destroying Liverpool, he's going to sink them, they're going to go down, bloody 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 blah. I mean, look at their side. And this is not the Liverpool devil, this is not the Liverpool channel, but I mean, as gratifying as it is for Liverpool to lose, I mean, they've got to come back. Their players are too good. You know, they're sitting third in the league. They've scored 14 goals. Okay, they've conceded 11 goals, but they've scored 14 goals. You know, Isaac as well. You know, Isaac, be careful what you wish for when you go on strike, because you know this is what happens. So on that note, guys, I am going to go. Rambo says if United had bought Wirtz, he was dreadful for us. Rambo, if we'd have bought Wirtz, right, and he'd have flopped as hard. Look, he's not flopped yet, right? But if we'd have bought him and he'd have had the same season so far, we would be absolutely battered. We would be absolutely destroyed. We would be in the gutter. We'd be in the mud. We'd be huge. We'd be destroyed. Because we all know there are double standards. Yeah, we do. Windows 98 says Liverpool are in the mud. At the moment, it doesn't look particularly good. It really doesn't at the moment. But all I'm going to say on that is, look, just be careful, because it can come back to bite us on the arse. So I'm sure these. Kevin McGee says, I'm the mud. I'd rather be in their position than yours. We need to beat Brighton. We do. Would I rather be in Liverpool's position? I would be. Not right this second. But overall, I would do. But 4 losses in a row is pretty. I think the problem with Liverpool, and this is the biggest problem, right? Oh, excuse me. And I'm not here to talk about Liverpool, because this is not what this channel is about. The only thing I'm going to say on it is that I think the biggest problem with Liverpool is that it's the amount of money that they spent. I think that's the crux of the issue here, is the amount of money that they spent, the way that they did the Isaac business, the way they bought Wirtz, and the price was inflated and therefore inflated the market. I think that's the problem this season. I think if Liverpool had have gone out and bought, Frimpong, I thought was a good deal. Kirkes, I thought was a good deal. Ekitike, great deal. I think if they'd have bought those 3, nobody would have batted an eyelid, and they could have lost 4 games. Oh, excuse me. Champions sometimes have a blip. That is what happens. I don't think people would have batted an eyelid on those signings. I think Ekitike, a great signing. Kirkes, good signing, good price. Frimpong, good signing, good price. The problem is that they went and did what they did with Isaac, and then they went and did what they did with Wirtz. I think it's those 2 in the context of winning the league and spending nearly £500 million. I think that's going to hurt them this season. I mean, they're still third, 15 points. Brighton have beaten us loads over the last 5 years. Look, Kevin, they have beaten us, but I just think that we've got to support the team, mate. Look, if you listen to me, Kevin McGee, I can be at times one of the most, not pessimistic, but I've supported this team, but I've still had my problem with this team. But come a match day, as much as I'll say to you, you make a good point, 100%. But unless we start believing in this team at some point, are we not feeding the rhetoric? Are we not feeding the media? Right? We've had a brilliant win, wasn't the best performance, But at what point do we go, we need to support? Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Luke Shaw. I'm not the biggest fan of Bruno. I'm not the biggest fan of his back three. I'm not the biggest fan of this pivot. But I'll still support it. If Luke Shaw plays well, I'll say that he's played well. I think right now, I think what we need to do as a community and as a fan base is get behind this. This could be the start of something. Why try to burn it down already? Let's take that Liverpool win and let's try to make something from it. We've got to start somewhere. We've got to start somewhere. I think let's start from there. So did Liverpool, but some things have to come to an end. It's a little calmer in Liverpool, but we've had plenty over the last 10 years. We've had more than our share, I think, than our rubbish. We've had 20 years of the Glazers. I think we've had our fair share. Our stadium is crumbling. Our team is awful. We've had our fair share. I think it's now time for us to have some happy times. £500 million, £500 million. So now teams will get them more. You've got Van Dijk twerking, Verts flopping. Isaac is an absolute. Of course, we've got to support the team, but I'm a realist. And Kevin, mate, I am as well. If you've watched this show before, which I know that you have, I am as well. But if we hadn't have beaten Liverpool, I saw something different. It was I predicted that we'd lose. I've called these players out all season. Now I feared the worst against so Brentford, Fulham. I feared the worst against all these teams. But I did see something different. I am a realist too. I still don't trust these players. But I think at some point you have to go, look, I'll trust them. The next game, I will trust these players. If they don't turn up for this game, then again, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. If we can go and win that game, maybe we sort of have turned the corner. But Kevin, I am with you. Because we've won a single game, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because I want this to mean something. If they go and lose, then I'm back to square one again. Hello says Ahmad is a good player. I agree. One of the best against Liverpool. I agree. Correct. All we have to do is feed the narrative, and we need to start to believe. Like on the transfer window, Liverpool have spent almost £1 billion. They are still on losing streak. They spent £500 million. Did you see the interview with Klopp and why he didn't go to? I did, and I don't blame him. I actually, it makes me respect Klopp even more, Kevin. I think to myself, God damn it, Klopp. It makes me want him even more because he's not prepared to suffer the bullshit. Spending minutes doesn't guarantee success. Exactly. Mazraoui out showed how arrogant we were 10 years ago. It does. No, but it also shows, Kevin, it also shows the club was run by bankers. The club was run by people that knew nothing about football, owned by people that knew nothing about football, run, then managed by people that had no idea. Jurgen Klopp, I respect him even more now. United on paper should win their next 8 games. Kevin, we've got one game a week. We should be winning these games. We've got one game a week. Other than, I get some of the other teams, as well have. But we've got one game a week. With this squad, and what I mean is with these highly paid players, we should 100% be getting into the top 4, 5, 6. We're not good enough. Cunha onslaught incoming. I really, really hope so. So on that note, guys, I am going to go. I do have to go and do some stuff and pick up the kids and all that normality. I won't be back tonight because I've got an early stop tomorrow. I'll probably will be back tomorrow night at some point, hopefully. If not, I will be back then Friday. But I should be back I should be back tomorrow night. If anything does break on things like the sale, I will come back on this evening. I don't plan to, but if anything does break, like anything breaks or the share price goes mad or what, I will come back on tonight. But other than that, take care. I hope the 5th defeat in a row comes. It will make my night. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. As always, we are pushing 19,000 now, which is absolutely ridiculous. On the road to 20,000, and it's all thanks to you guys. This channel doesn't exist without you guys. Whether it's good, bad, or whether you guys spend a minute, an hour, a second here, give me your opinions. We don't have to agree. I think that is the best thing in life, is that we don't have to agree, but we can respectfully agree to disagree on many things, which I think we do on here fantastically well. 19k tired United fans. Exactly. We are tired. We are tired. But this is why I think what we do on here very, very well is that we talk it out. And I don't feel we're toxic. I don't feel we are. I think we're all striving towards the same goal. We all have our opinions on the way we watch football. We all have our different opinions on players. But ultimately, all we want to do is win. And we want to kind of just be the club that we know that we should be again. And I think that's ultimately what the aim is. So thank you guys for watching. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Take care. I'll hopefully be back tomorrow night. I won't be back tonight because I'm leaving early tomorrow morning, but I will see you tomorrow. So have a good one, and I'll see you very, very soon. Take care all.